John MacArthur, father of the Australian fine merino wool industry. That statement itself is enough to stamp this man as a leader of the biggest industry in colonial New South Wales, up to and including the gold rush. We'll deal in detail with the rise of the wool industry in another post. Now, John MacArthur had come to the colony in the primitive period, and he had fights with various governors including Bligh and Macquarie. He was a fierce enemy of the Major General and the colony's fifth governor. I'm Michael Beashall, Australian historical fiction writer, and now we're going to talk about John MacArthur's influence and his impact during the early colonial period from 1822 to 1838. Now, he was 55 at the start of this period, married with children, and he was listened to when he spoke about wool, especially to those important players in London, about the future potential of the industry in New South Wales. Now, in those times in England, had to import wool from Europe and pay exorbitant prices for it. So having their own colony with that needed product was a distinct advantage. Now, John MacArthur was adamant that he, a wool baron, and others like him should be viewed as an aristocracy in the New World. By doing this, he realised that he would be setting himself up to fight the emancipists and their ilk like Wentworth. So when Governor Brisbane arrived, as we talked about before, MacArthur was optimistic about Brisbane's attitude and support of MacArthur's ideals. Now, MacArthur's own management of convicts was very good, and he could boast that few of them misbehaved, with only 2 having to be punished in all the time he was there. His architectural taste at Camden, he wanted to leave an estate based on the classical lines of the Greek school. But in middle age, he was suffering more illnesses and spent a lot of time in bed, overcome at times with depression, which led to paranoia and delusions, as we'd call them today, and of his phantom enemies attacking him. In his own writings, he believed that the common people should be satisfied with the basics of life, especially food. But when these same people wanted sugar and tea and other niceties as well, he couldn't understand it. These items were only fit for the aristocrats of his class. In the next years and for the foreseeable future, he would be the leader of the Tory wing, which believed in the class society of aristocracy, church and king's representative ruling over the masses. He fought his archenemy William Charles Wentworth, the Whig counterpart, many times, including petitions that they both supported by arguments in their favour to London at various times. Now, there was such a case where a man called John Raine, a small property owner, who was accused by John MacArthur of defrauding him. Now, Wentworth was a barrister, took on John Raine and defended him, anything to have a go at MacArthur. Now, somewhat similar to the East India Trading Company, the Australian Agricultural Company was set up in 1824, and John MacArthur and other leading lights of the colony bought shares in this company, which was to receive large areas of land in New South Wales for its investment of £1 million in capital. We can only imagine the wealth that generated. In 1829, to indicate John MacArthur's aversion to anything to do with republicanism, he wanted to introduce a bill into the Legislative Council of New South Wales that put restraints on the press of colonial newspapers, like a restriction of freedom of the press nowadays. Again, things haven't changed a lot, 200 years. John MacArthur over the next years continued his fight for what he believed was the true order of New South Wales, and fought against supporting people for jury duty who were ex-convicts. Only immigrants of property and wealth could be on a jury. By 1832, the poor man was suffering. He was in a semi-delirious state with paranoia and depression daily visitors. He died on the 11th of April 1834 and was buried on his beloved 7,000-acre property at Camden Park. The press were literal in their statement of the fact of his death. No effusive eulogies were written at that time. It was perhaps an ill fortune that he was remembered thus by general society, because his servants and people who worked close for him found him a caring, just and kindly man. You know, in some respects, he might have been better suited to be living in 17th century England on a big park estate and wealth, which was more conducive to what he believed, and right in his own mind, to be the true order of things in life. I'm Michael Beashall, and that brings us to the end of John MacArthur, but there's plenty to read about him, so take your time, pick your books, and enjoy this powerful man and highly influential character of early 19th century Sydney. Till next time, goodbye.